that the fascists have won.
God damn it,
Look,
again.
you stole my opportunity to open up with furries in Cradle. Because here's the thing. Theoretically, could a sacred beast not choose to be a furry instead of like a full-on human?
I mean, I'm pretty sure the dragons in Cradle were, like, when they were in the Lord realm, were scaling.
They're
Just gonna interrupt this to say, hi, welcome back to the Storytime Network. We're trying the Cradle talk again. Hopefully my internet doesn't just decide to fucking die for like 2 hours.
Fingers crossed, knock on wood.
Yeah. Because yeah, it
Meanwhile,
died.
we'll
It just straight up died for 2 years. Not 2 years, 2 hours. I'm too tired for this shit.
Yep.
Yeah, Mill is just gonna be mindlessly playing FIFA in the background because he's tired, so it's mostly gonna be
That's what I do most
the three
days.
of us.
That's what I do
FIFA
most days
or
at this point.
or Football Manager.
FIFA. Football Manager takes way too much brain power at this point.
That's fair.
FIFA is mindless.
FIFA is
like a lot
entirely
of sports ball
mindless.
players.
FIFA is entirely mindless for me now.
Exactly, just like a lot of sports ball players are entirely mindless.
Yeah, not fair. I'm not gonna argue. I'm not gonna argue with that. Football players are fucking
Mill
idiots.
did play rugby for a while, so he technically classifies as a sports ball player.
I mean, I also played sports ball up through middle school, so yeah.
Rugby's different. It does have some level of intelligence. Football, though, they're all fucking idiots.
I mean, to be fair, based on what I've watched of Ted Lasso, maybe.
But the thing is, if you're good enough at football to get into like a proper like Premier League club, generally you've known you don't have to pay attention in school because you've got a like multi-million pound contract waiting for you. So they're all fucking idiots for the most part. There are some smart ones, obviously, but most of them are fucking idiots.
Sounds a lot like how scholarship athletes are in American college.
Yeah, and they've got the added bonus of all those concussions. I'm surprised, and the steroids.
That's just American rules football.
And the steroids. I'm surprised American footballers can string sentences together, to be brutally honest.
Look, let's be real. The steroids are not a North American exclusive.
No, they are not.
Concoction. I'm pretty sure they come with the contract.
I mean, just look at Liverpool in the Premier League. Yeah, I'm saying it. Fuck you, Liverpool. You suck.
Okay, let's not get into the ethical and sociological ramifications of sports scholarships. We're here to talk about a young man who punches and then eats defenseless animals.
And his name was Pinocchio.
Look, we're not talking about Lives of P either, though I really do want to play that game.
What the hell?
The demo is out.
Oh my god. I didn't know that was an actual thing. I thought you guys were bullshitting.
No, it's Bloodborne starring Pinocchio.
Yeah, it's
Holy shit.
it's Bloodborne, Rise of the Twinks.
God damn it, again.
Look, Pinocchio... Is he legal? We have to ask ourselves this question.
So,
Lies of the Twink, unclear. Probably yes, but unclear.
Well, here's the thing. We now have to get into the debate of if the robot that has existed for like a year has the cognitive functions, are they a 1-year-old or however many years their mental age is, and what's the legality of that situation?
it's like the inverse of the 700-year-old lolly, basically.
Yes, no, that's actually legitimately a thing that exists. Like, a lot of fictional media have any series that has a robot girl waifu, or boy waifu, because as we all know, the term waifu is gender neutral. Don't fight me on that.
So, I will cite an example from going back to really old school shit. Athena, born full-grown adult, from the head of her father.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Athena from Saint Seiya.
No, I don't know Saint Seiya.
I mean,
I don't
not
go
wrong.
there.
And we're probably not wrong with Athena from Saint Seiya either, but like
Probably
that's
not.
an entirely different.
Yeah, different
thing.
discussion. But yeah, no, like, I think it really depends on the maturity of the character in question.
Yes, but at the same time, there's an argument to be made that maturity and tangible experiences are not the same thing.
But at the same time, it's also difficult to really assign that kind of thing when someone is basically born an adult in terms of knowledge and capacity.
Yes, but again, it's the difference between theory and practice.
Yes, I think it's best taken on a case-by-case basis, personally.
So
Because
basically,
otherwise-
we've come to the same conclusion as the but officer, she's actually a 500-year-old vampire situation.
Kinda?
I mean, they're basically the same problem, but coming from different ends. So I can.
Yeah, no, they are clearly the inverse problem of one another.
Yeah, like I said, they're the same problem. Mathematically, they are basically the same problem.
Mhm.
Disclaimer: I am not a mathematician, nor do I know any math.
But yeah,
yes, mathematically, they're the same.
before we move on to the actual meat of what we're going to be discussing, is there anything else you'd like to get off your chest, Fuzzy?
Why did you ask me?
Because you like putting in, as TFS says, hilariously derailing one-liners.
Look, we'll have time for that later. I can't just come up with these on the spot. You must understand. You posted. Was it you? No, you were the one who was. I'm in this picture and I don't like it. But there was a meme about this on the on our super secret private server. Remember the whole fast mental connections thing?
Oh, was it? I'm not smarter. I'm dumb faster.
Yes, that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no. These things do not. They have to come to me spontaneously. It's just that because I'm the only one who can see my thought process, it seems like I'm making non sequiturs.
Okay, you know what? Fair enough.
So yes, let's get back to talk about.
Cradle, yes.
So full spoilers. We already started talking about this a little bit. But we are going into full spoiler mode right from the get-go. Again, you never got to finish your thoughts on the whole Malice situation. So would you like to start from where we left off, or just from the beginning?
In the beginning, there was the word, and the word was malice.
God damn it.
Yeah, I mean, Malice is so fascinating as a character because, well, like the relationship she has to Mercy and the arc of, this is. I've said this before in other Cradle discussions we've had, where the entirety of Cradle, like both on the planet and also the greater situation with the Abaddon, is all about this question of systems and the ways in which these systems have calcified and become toxic. And
So a reflection of reality.
well, I mean, that is fantasy. That is how fantasy operates.
Fantasy and sci-fi often do reflect reality in some way.
And so, to say that, when you look at Malice and the Akora clan, you very clearly see, the ways in which toxic family dynamics not only bind people, but also prevent them from growing.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's important to remember this is not exclusive to planets
culture.
spanning oligarchy.
Right.
Right?
Or,
It's exaggerated, but this is a dynamic that does exist in real families all over the world.
especially families that stem from collectivist societies like East Asia or South Asia. This idea that, Malice as a character has undergone this severe trauma and then wields that trauma as an excuse to control her family and inflict trauma of her own. All
It's
while
the chain of harm, basically, and she's beating her family with it.
Yes, and like the tragedy of Malice is summed up by Emrys, right? Like Emrys is the one who says the thing. I think like at some point during the fight, Emrys says, "It's a shame," or was it Emrys or was it Claudia? One of the two says that Malice used to be such a shining example.
Yes,
I
hang
believe
on.
it was Claudia.
I have, so as the turbo nerd that I am, I've taken notes, or rather, I've highlighted many passages.
Naturally.
In my, so I'm opening it up.
But like, I don't know, like whenever you read stories about family dynamics, especially in South Asian and East Asian culture, or Southeast Asian culture, you often hear the refrain is often, "Oh, they used to be so great, but look at what they're doing." Right? They've calcified and started to lash out with their own trauma, despite how successful they are, or how the things that they've accomplished.
It's almost like this bad boy can fit so much trauma.
Yeah, and then we see the ways in which the three main, I guess 4 main Akura members that we meet and grow alongside Fury, Charity, Mercy, and Pride. Who has the healthiest structure, right? Like who of the 4 has the healthiest relationship to the family? Fury. Because Fury is loyal to the family, he cares about the family, but at the same time, he is wholly separate from the family. He has separated himself.
Well, it's not just that. It's that to him, the members of his family are still individuals that he cares about.
Mm-hmm.
And he is willing to compromise between the two. Right? He still prioritizes the benefits of the family, but at the same time, he does his best to minimize the harm that the people he cares about, like his own family members, actually do. Like, he will not sacrifice them for benefits as readily.
Right. Like, Fury's not, Fury is not the type of person who will, if presented with the chance, would he let Mercy die to get at Zaris or Sesh or even Safar and Atath? Right? That's not in his calculus. And I think that is, and in terms of in terms of their relationship to Malice and along that axis, Fury is the one who most readily opposes her and who most directly opposes her. Meanwhile, Charity is fully under her thumb and is the last almost to come away from saying, "No, I need to stop."
So I think Charity is not quite that clear cut. I believe Charity is one of those people who has realized that systems are very, very hard to break down, but has always felt that she's kind of on her own, and as a result needed to work from the inside out rather than the outside in.
Mm.
Right?
I don't disagree with that, but I also read it as, he's the one who does the right thing. There's a trope in these stories about the family dynamic, i.e., look at Turning Red, or shoot, what's the one I'm thinking of? There's always like the dutiful
Kanto.
sibling versus prodigal son.
Encanto, yeah. It's the
Encanto.
dutiful child, the golden
Right.
child, as it were.
Isabel versus Mirabel, right?
Yeah.
So there's also a practical consideration here. I think another thing is that, and Fury understood this as well, or he wouldn't have ascended without so easily. But I think they both realized that a monarch is necessary to avoid the family being torn to shreds by scavengers. And they realize that the monarch in question is the source of the the source of the problem. So they're trying to come to terms with that. Because, like, here's the thing. As we saw, Malice was much more powerful than I think any of us really expected from the beginning.
Well, because Malice, in many ways, screams fragile Archer, right? Like, dark magic girl, she's like obviously gonna be she's gonna be the one that goes down without a fight versus Northstrider, whereas it ended up being the reverse.
Well, there was still a fight with Northstrider. It's just Lyndon managed to talk him down.
Less than that, it was more that like Northstrider wasn't beaten in a contest of strength. He was beaten in a contest of will.
Yes.
Malice.
It wasn't even a matter of will. It was just like I feel like we do have to give Northstrider some credit, even though it was facilitated by Lyndon. At the end of the day, he was the one who had like the self-awareness to realize how much he changed, and the awareness to realize, and the willingness really to accept that he'd made mistakes and try and move on. Right? Like, you have to give him some credit for that.
But I think that's the thing, right? Like, of the monarchs, right? Between, well, the three oppositional monarchs, like Shen, Malice, and Northstrider, like, we've gotten glimpses of their pasts. And, of the three, Northstrider, one of the youngest we've ever seen him was him going to selflessly, like, protect Amherst's territory for no gain. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was no reason for him to do so other than, it was Amherst's territory, he was doing her a favor.
I mean, like, it was told from his perspective, and it's explicitly said that his heart bled for the casualties.
Right. And
So he was clearly a very empathetic person who cared about, like, even unrelated people.
Exactly. And then, like, Malice very clearly has spent her entire existence, fighting back the horde of Sesh's horde. Let's be honest, like, without Malice, the entirety of Ashwind would have been razed to the ground by the dragons.
Almost certainly, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, of them, like, you would expect that, Malice and Northstrider would be reasonable, like, would be amenable to be talked down.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, the funny thing is that Malice couldn't be. She had she had become too toxic. Like, she
was too wrapped up in her own shit.
Yeah, her trauma had too much come to define her. And I think this is partially because she had to define herself for so long as this thing, which is, I mean, the icon, right? Like,
The Nether Empress.
Yeah, I mean, when did Northstrider really start to, like, hear Lyndon? After Lyndon stole his icon. After Lyndon beat out of him this need to impress the world.
Well, to be fair, he didn't steal the entire icon. He just, like, weakened it enough to...
For North Strider to break past it, yeah.
And I think, this is another thing. Again, this is one of those things where, when talking about a fantasy story, you have to combine both the fantasy mechanics and the actual character writing. But we do have to remember that for most of his life using the consume technique, North Strider didn't have an AI to help him sort the memories.
Yep.
So it's very likely that the reason he was so strongly affected by his icon was that that was the only one of the few ties he had left to himself. After years or even like decades or centuries of being overwhelmed by the memories and wills of other people. But the problem is that the icon didn't represent his entire self. It was a part of him, but it didn't define him, except he was so busy trying to battle it out with all of the other conflicting consciousnesses inside his own mind that he had to let it define him, because it was the only way to actually hold on.
Yep. Honestly, a fascinating thing to think about. And it contrasts them both with good old Raygon Shen, who is
I love Shen. Like the way, like the when he passes, it is the funniest thing to me.
It is so fucking funny and satisfying. Just like,
look, let's be real here. If North Strider was a redemption arc, and realizing that he was not nearly as bad, and Malice was a full-on tragic villain fall,
yeah,
Shen was Looney Tunes.
he did get
Shen
Wile
was
E.
Wile E.
Coyote.
Coyote.
So
Yep.
so Shen's whole thing in this book very much reminded me of, of a story that's been told several times, but the one that came to mind for me was Clayman in Reincarnated as a Slime.
Yes.
Yep. That tracks.
That moment where they get to the meeting and it's like, yeah, no, you fucked up. Everyone here knows what you've been doing, and you have fucked up, sir. And it's gonna go horribly for you. And it's gonna be so entertaining for us to watch it.
He just overstepped his own capabilities to such an egregious degree.
Like, the entire book, he spends being beaten within an inch of his life and then running from far more powerful foes.
Yep.
I also think it's like Shen defines himself not by being a man, but by being a lion. Like he always thinks of himself as a lion first.
And it's all about that pride.
But the funniest thing is that when he does finally kick the bucket, he's not a lion. He's a man.
He's a man who swirls wine in his goblet like some sort of villain who wants to be Shakespearean.
Like,
which is that defines him.
Yep.
He's not like when we get a picture of Tiberian's remnant. You know, every measure of it is this full, like, it's, how do I describe it? It's like treated as this, like, he is a monster. Like it is this monstrous individual.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know he has power behind it. Whereas when we see Shen rise, it is pitiful. And I think that is important.
Yep.
Can I just say, of all of the monarchs, I kind of feel bad for Shamiko.
Who?
And look,
Shamiara?
Yes, I call her that. Do you not remember the useless
I
disaster
remember.
lesbian?
I-
Do you not? No, the useless disaster lesbian demon girl.
I remember.
Uh,
I remember her.
Yeah, no. I call her that because she has, first of all, the name fits, and second of all, she's also like a red/pink head, so you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
just
no, I
most-
do kind of feel bad for her.
It
Yeah.
is. She is like the most pitiful character in this book because she is literally she's a child.
Mhm.
She is at most in the most conservative timeline. She's 15.
I think
And
she's. Yeah, she's in her mid-teens or so.
Yeah, no, she was like 11 or 12 when, according to Word of Will, she was like 12, 11 or 12 when she became a monarch when Suriel showed Lyndon.
Okay, that was 7 years before the final book, so she's 19 then. 18, 19.
No. It was 5 years ago. Because Lyndon, remember, Lyndon, the 7-year gap is after the 2-year time skip.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that not even 5 years ago, because like based
No,
on the
it's-
timeline, it was about 4 to 5 years. Not quite 5, but not as less
That's
as 4. Because she's still 15 or 16. That's still a child.
Yeah, no, she is.
But also,
Yeah. So
you have to remember that Shamiara is, she's another casualty of Cradle,
Yes.
right? Like, she is, like, functionally, like, she is forced to become greater than she is ready to be because the structures of the world demanded of her.
Yep, and she is not remotely prepared for it, and it kind of shows in her bearing, especially at the end.
Well, I mean, like, how does, like,
I mean, at the end, she's a scared child who just doesn't want to die.
yeah, no, there's, like, the fact that she, like, clings to Shen or Amaris.
She's just looking for someone to support her, right? She's just looking for a pillar of support because she's insecure, and like it's like she's the most low key. Shamiara is like the single most pitiful character in the series,
Yes.
at least
mean-
by the end.
Does it mean that Ethan clowning on her in the Uncrowned tournament isn't funny?
It isn't. But-
You know, now that I think about it, that was a very appropriate matchup, but also it was still Ethan punching down.
Oh, he was punching down. Does not make it less funny in the moment.
Ethan is
No,
always
it was
punching
not-
down.
Yes,
Yeah, Ethan's always punching down, to be fair.
except the fight with the Mad King where he was very briefly punching up. Probably like the only time in his life he was punching up, really.
Yeah, probably.
And that's only because he was on the back. Like, he was not operating at full.
But anyways, yeah, Miara just does not have a good time, and honestly, I kind of wish we found out more about what her fate was, because she kind of deserves, like, at least some sort of resolution.
Like, here's the thing. There was a strong implication from Shen, and this is one of the few places where I do believe that Shen might have been right. I don't think Emrys really cares about her. She was just using her. And that's kind of... I don't know, like, I think people... Look, Tree Mom is cool and all, but I think people definitely give her... perhaps aspire more kindness to her than she has.
I don't think she was fully using Miara to the degree that Shen is implying.
Well,
No,
Let-
but I don't
I-
think she
well,
cared as much as she was implying either.
well, I think Emrys was using Shamiara as much as Emrys was using Lyndon and the gang.
Yeah. Kind of as a means to an end, but she still ultimately cares about most people. And since Miara was cooperating in the end, she was more willing to, give her
Definitely
the
think
benefit of the doubt,
Like-
to rather than, fucking
Like I-
her over like she did Shen.
I fully believe that the minute Emrys got out, she brought Miara on side.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the moment we see Miara show up at the end during the main confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
No, she was already. She was already
turned. Yeah.
100%.
Remember, Emrys's specialty is like communicating with people over vast distances.
Yes.
She might have already been doing it by the time, the moment she stepped out of the prison when Lyndon rescued her.
Let's be honest,
Also,
she probably did it beforehand.
Honestly, also props to Miara for actually being able to convince Shen that she was still on his side.
I don't think it was particularly about acting on her part. I think she was entirely flying by the seat of her pants.
Possible, but also it does help her that Shen was kind of on the back foot the whole time.
Look, here's a very important question. Does she wear pants?
What? I didn't catch that.
Do sacred artists wear pants?
Yes, it's mentioned a few times.
Yeah, Shen wears pants.
Shen wears pants. I'm pretty sure Lyndon wears pants. Nathan does.
Look, if Shen didn't wear pants, I don't think we were all ready for Lion Dick.
Well, no. I mean, probably it was. He did show up in full lion form, so it was there. Just because we didn't focus on it didn't mean it wasn't hanging out. It's not like he had pants on in his lion form.
You don't know that. You do not know that.
I'm pretty sure I do. I mean, it also brings about the question of where do the clothes go when they transform? Because we
hammer
see
space.
It's part of their being.
Hammer space.
I think we just have to assume it goes into the soul space and hope for the best.
I tend to think it's part of their being.
But yeah,
yeah,
at the end, it's made very clear that Emrys gets a recommendation from Ethan, and Shamiara is just left. Like, I fully expect that on Threshold, Emrys just dumped Shamiara and moved on with her life. I'm pretty sure, and I don't think Shamiara got to bring any of her family with her. So literally, she left a child alone on this strange world after leaving behind everything.
It's uncharitable, honestly.
We don't know anything beyond Shamiara was not given
a recommendation from Ethan. Yeah.
Well, no, we also know that she had no time to prepare. Because
no one had time to prepare because it was an urgent ascension.
Except Emrys already had her entire family hanging on a pendant in her neck.
Yeah, and she was the only one who was prepared. Literally everyone else in that group was not.
Which suggests that Shamiara is literally an insecure child, is literally alone in a world where a monarch isn't really that big a deal, having left behind everything she's known her entire life. The girl.
Oh no, I absolutely feel sorry for her. But we don't know what happened after they ascended beyond them meeting Ethan. For all we know, he could have just been pulling her chain and actually been nice about it.
Or, Emrys, it's very probable that Emrys just checks in on her.
Yes. Because
I don't know. I just for some reason, Emrys has always felt much more calculating to me than I think most other people consider her.
Oh, I think she's fully calculating. I just don't think she's
for example, I don't here's the thing. I don't think she's emotionally invested in any of these people. If we get down to it, I think in terms of emotional investment, Malice may have been more invested than Emrys was.
I'd like to point out that specifically not getting Ethan's recommendation may be a plus for some of the judges.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a fair point.
Because, again, Miara does not seem like she'd be qualified for the Phoenixes, and that's the one division where Ethan's recommendation would hold clout.
Yeah.
I don't know,
the other judges are at best... The
Are-
other judges are at best amicable with him. They do not necessarily like him.
To be fair, the one area I could probably see her is the ghosts, so...
The ghosts would work for her, and, yeah.
Honestly, you know what I kind of... Look, this is not going to happen, but I can dream. If we don't get to see the journey from Abaddon recruit to judge from Lyndon's perspective, because clearly we're not getting that, I don't mind a sequel series with Shamiara as the protagonist working her way up to judge.
That would be pretty neat, actually.
Because she's a very interesting character if you think about it. Any character that is basically a child monarch, right? Or child, and I don't mean monarch in the Cradle sense. I mean there are examples of this happening in history, right? Like the sheer number of child pharaohs is uncountable.
I kind of think that Will is doing the whole like trained by past experiences with the new series though. So I don't think he's interested in doing it again.
Yeah. Well, we don't know much about what Will's plans are for like any possible fall to Cradle.
I want a series that like explores the mechanics from like in the post-Ascension universe. Because there's clearly, he's been hinting at the fact that there is an entire magic system and system of advancement to go from like mortal to judge. Because
I mean, the judge position for the Hounds is open.
Yeah, and I would love to see.
Honestly, if anyone was going to get that one, it'd probably be Northstrider.
No, Northstrider strikes me more as a... He's a research guy, so he honestly strikes me more as a ghost, because the ghosts are the most technical division.
Maybe.
Or a spider.
Spider would probably work.
No, he's too punchy for that.
Yeah.
He's like, his awareness has never been the best. No, either Spider or honestly, I think Northstrider would make a pretty good Phoenix, especially if he can get back to that mentality that he had. Because remember, he was single-handedly responsible for ensuring the health and safety of everyone in the Uncrowned tournament.
Not to mention, he was also the sponsor for everyone who wasn't associated with one of the other monarchs.
And
Yeah, so he is...
His aspect was blood.
Yeah, and blood is one of the healing... Like, Blood Icon probably has a lot of restoration capability. So honestly, if he can get his previous mentality back, I think there's a non-zero chance that we see a cameo of Northstrider the Phoenix. Maybe not the Phoenix, but a Phoenix.
I mean, Fury was a hound, right? Or a titan?
No, Fury was a wolf.
Fury was a wolf. It's mentioned that he has the wolf badge.
Yeah, no, they did not even have to, like, give him the pitch. He just went up to the recruiter and was like, which one's the punchy division?
Yes.
See, I forget what the divisions are, and I think that's my problem.
If I recall correctly, it's Wolf, Titan, Hound, Spider, Fox, Ghost, Reaper, and Spider.
And Phoenix. You missed Phoenix. You said Phoenix. Spider twice and missed Phoenix.
That's what. I thought I missed Spider the first time. But yeah, Phoenix.
Yeah, so the Hounds are the planners and future people, whereas
they're the hunters of sorts.
They're the Hounds are the project managers. They're the administrators, more or less.
They have admin privileges.
But yeah. All that Northstrider like speculation is like predicated on him not, ending up in the void.
No, because he ascended before the gang, and they
ascended when the connection was at its worst before it severed completely.
Yeah, he ascended when Threshold was still open, because the Huron explicitly said that they were the last group from Cradle to ascend to Threshold, which means that.
Yeah, but we saw with the group's ascension that it was flickering, wasn't it?
Yeah, but that was because of the Dread God stuff.
Yeah, but
was it? No,
yeah.
I don't think it was.
No,
I think that was because of the threshold stuff.
Yes, it was because of both.
It was because of no, but the Threshold stuff had not progressed. There was still a clear connection to Threshold by that point already.
Yeah, they still were able to get across. But,
but again, it flickered. They had to wait until it actually solidified into Threshold.
North Strider did it. He ascended quite a while before the rest.
Yeah, he had that window.
Yeah, but chaos was still happening during the fucking book. It's not like between North Strider ascending and the others ascending, like everything went to shit. Everything was already like full of shit.
It hadn't gotten quite as bad, is what we're trying to say.
The thing that really causes the flickering and like the tearing is like the duel between the Mad King, Suriel, and Machiel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is the pivot point.
But yeah, I do feel like we don't get a lot of answers on a lot of the characters. I mentioned this last time, but we don't get a lot of mentions on a lot of characters outside of the main cast.
It's the shonen side character problem, right?
Yeah, it's not as bad as some, but it's still not ideal, because we only get confirmation on the fate of a couple characters definitely staying behind. Namely, Kelsa and Charity are definitely confirmed to be staying behind. Most of the 8-man Empire, at least a couple of them state they're ascending, including Larian.
It's so funny to me that the 8-man Empire was somehow the healthiest dynamic.
Yes.
No, but actually, if you think about it, they'd have to be.
Yeah.
Right?
It makes so much sense, but it's so funny.
Yeah.
Also, I just love like as soon as the others hear that Lyndon is giving out Dread God presents, they just immediately start coming his way to pick up the presents.
And but no, if you think about it, we should have. Their dynamic was very, very clear from day one. Because when Suriel showed them, they were kind of just like partying in a random bar in the middle of nowhere, right? Like it was very well established that like if you think about it, all of the dynamics were established in that scene. Shamiara was forced to sort of like be the ruler, even though she wasn't remotely ready. North Strider was just like
doing his own thing,
being a weird hobo, and the 8-man Empire was like hanging out with each other because they,
Mm-hmm.
if you have that connection that requires you to fully put your lives in the hands of others, you better have a good relationship, or you would have like fallen apart a long time ago.
And also, every time we see them fighting, they're fighting in pairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, Herald Monarch or Herald Sage pairs. Yeah.
And so, like,
because they have those powers complementing each other.
Yeah.
Well, and it's
because
also
like Larian generally pairs up. Well, no, Larian. Actually, no. The one we've seen fly solo the most is Larian.
Yeah, because she's an archer, so she can do it fairly well.
But the thing is, also, she is probably the most. They've also probably said you're the most cordial.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. She is very cordial and very funny.
Mm-hmm.
I just love her bit with the bow at the towards the end where it's like,
It gave me so much joy.
it's okay, mommy's here now. The scary man's gone. So funny.
And then her partner's just like, hey, stop that. This bow has seen you through some things. And then immediately drops it when he's given his own spear.
It's so great. The scene's so funny. But yeah, we don't really get confirmation on most of the supporting cast and where they go. Like, aside from the monarchs whose fates we do get, except we don't know what happens with North Strider or Miara after they ascend, really. But we do get we don't get really detailed fates on any of the other supporting cast members aside from Min Shui, who ascends, who joins Lyndon when he ascends, as well as Pride, who also joins, and gets a very funny scene with Fury and Mercy.
No, with Mercy, yeah.
Mercy and Fury.
Well, I mean,
Because-
Fury. him
Oh,
going
right,
up
because
with-
Fury shows up and is like, well, someone's been slacking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
I
is
love
personal
like
hell.
the moment Ethan mentions training, Fury just perks up and Pride of me is like, no.
Yeah.
It's like,
Pride is in his own personal hell, and I'm so happy for him.
It's great.
yeah, I
I also do like Pride calling out how Ethan, Lyndon, and the rest are just like freaks of nature for ascending so fast.
again, they are freaks of science.
Yes, it's still funny.
But no, the reason I think there's another thing that was brought up later on, but the fact that the executors that become the Reaper division, it really does point out a fundamental flaw in, and I think Ethan being in charge is why he's able to fix it, but based on what we know, the first two generations of executors were treated as in the same way that Osriel was treated.
Mm-hmm.
In that they basically treated them as tools, pointed them in the general direction of a problem, and then just let them go. And because they were too important to spare, they didn't get any sort of, like, I don't know, time to cope with the trauma?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, they should honestly, like, in Osriel's trial, when Ethan does his melodramatic thing of saying he should have killed them all himself, they're pretty lucky that that's not the route that went, because they really should have realized that they were basically making Mad King 2.0 with Osriel. And if he'd chosen to, instead of going into hiding and, like, taking a well, let's be real, he took a mental wellness break.
Yeah.
That's what he did. He took a 40-year mental wellness break.
At the worst time, but it was necessary.
Yes. Yep. And if he hadn't done that, he might have just gone full-on scythe-happy madman and just killed everyone else.
And he would have been unstoppable, too, because he's the strongest person in the fucking universe, besides maybe the Mad King.
Yes, and he's sufficiently sneaky that he could have picked them off one by one.
Yep.
Because he's admitted none of them are a match for him one-on-one, but he can't necessarily take them when they team up. But, like, yeah, he is absolutely... The judges are, like, selfish and individualistic enough that they would be on their own most of the time. So he absolutely picked them off one by one.
It's not even a matter of being selfish and individualistic. It's more a matter of just, like, their duties keep them from gathering together all that often.
You see that, but a lot of them have, like, the ability to work from a centralized location, and they simply choose not to. Like, there is absolutely no reason Telariel and Machiel should not work from the same base. Because they have the most overlap in terms of their responsibilities and jurisdiction.
Well, that could just be explained by Machiel being a prick.
But it's also like Telariel is basically just a dude who really likes to laze around on his own, so, you know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't apply to everyone, though, because, again, Suriel, at the very least, is very outgoing and friendly, and so is, to a lesser extent, so is Zachariel.
I think, well, no, here's the thing. Suriel is friendly, Zachariel is sassy, there's a difference.
But they're definitely the most outgoing members of the group.
I'm different.
Yeah. Like, they're absolutely outgoing and the kind of people who could make friends pretty easily. So I do feel like some of it is the idea of, like, trying not to be trying not to fraternize too much and get too friendly with your coworkers and blurred lines of, oh, we're not coworkers, we're actually friends, and we should definitely prioritize the friendship over getting our jobs done, that kind of thing.
And the funny thing is, Ethan is kind of working his way to proving that that's the correct approach.
Mm-hmm.
That being friends is better than being colleagues. That's literally what he do. And he's right. He's been right so far.
Yep.
Which honestly, like, it's the same principle as the 8-man empire, right?
Yep. You should be friends with who you work with. Because, like, if you're not friends with the person who has your back, then what are you doing?
Yeah, it's like... But yeah, again, do you have any more Cradle, like, more stuff, pre-Ascension thoughts? Because I feel like we've talked at decent length about Malice, but what about some of the other aspects?
I'm gonna step out for just a second. I'll be right back.
Okay,
guys.
I mean, like the Malice Mercy thing is the main one that I really make sure I wanted to hit. But I think there's something to be said for the way in which Zeal and Yeren hit their final moment. Particularly Zeal, I think.
I also really... Did you catch that gag about Zeal's original alpha design?
Is that what his remnant was?
No, the one where he's talking about kind of wishing he had a companion beast of his own and then immediately regretting it. Have you not seen that Word of Will then?
No, I don't. I haven't.
Do you know what? So Zeal's original design is, get this, he was supposed to be an MF and Pokemon trainer.
Of course he was.
Literally, his design was that he had, like, a team of 6 bonded companions who he would, like...
I'm guessing we'll turn that into the Beast.
Yes, essentially, I'm pretty sure at least part of that is where the Beast King came from.
But I think my favorite, like, Zeal is fascinating. Like, Zeal is so interesting as a character. He's also very funny.
He has, like, not only is he funny circumstantially, but you can really see that he's, like, kind of bringing dry humor the longer he spends with the gang. As he gets more comfortable with them, he's, like, actually making efforts to just, like, he has a sense of humor, and he does make jokes as the series goes on.
Are you talking about Zeal?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm glad I could catch that so quickly.
Yeah, because, like, he's definitely, like, the 6th Ranger, right? He is...
Yeah, he's the last joiner of the group.
Yeah, he's very much the 11th hour addition to the crew, but I'm honestly surprised at how well he kind of just slides in there.
Yeah. It is pretty neat, and I do like Zeal quite a bit. He is very fun. Especially his growth.
We all love he is our sad, horny boy, and we love him.
Mm-hmm. Also, I do like that he gets to punch out both the Storm Sage and the well, he doesn't kill the Storm Sage, but he still gets to wreck his shit. But he also gets to punch out the Weeping Dragon.
But I think that's the nice thing about his arc, is that, like, he's learning to be a shield again, where he really wants to be he's the shield who wants to be a sword so badly.
Well, he wants to be a hammer. There is, in fact, a separate icon for that.
Stop. Hammer time.
But, like, he wants, like, in the thematic sense, he wants to be a sword, not a shield, but he really is a shield. And then you have Yeren contrasting, who's like, no, I will kill the monster so you don't have to.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the Yaren Death Icon stuff did make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
Because
also think
I
about it
mean,
this way: Yaren is also the only one of the group who got direct lessons from Ethan.
Yep.
she is,
Well,
isn't she?
besides Lyndon. Lyndon also got direct
Well,
lessons.
no,
Not even as directly.
no, because Ethan would regularly spar with Yaren, like direct combat training.
Well,
With-
I'm not talking
with
about
Lyndon-
combat training. I'm talking about the heaven and earth purification technique.
No, that's a conceptual thing, though. It's not the same as teaching someone a technique is not the same as like practically guiding them like through combat with your own two hands. There's a very major difference between those two things.
I can see where you're coming from there.
Like, it's the difference between giving someone a secret recipe versus literally cooking it with them over and over and over again. Right? He never gave Yaren a recipe, but he literally had her, like, cook hands-on the whole time, whereas with Lyndon, he just kind of tossed him the recipe and let him figure his own crazy nonsense out.
Yeah, I mean, Yaren. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that.
I mean,
It's
well,
just-
no, here's the thing. Two things. First of all, Yaren's life has been defined by death.
Yes, death
Yeah,
has been a huge part of her life.
And I think
Death has been an
Ethan saw
eternal
that.
companion. Not only that, she's also a sword artist and basically walks a path where it's difficult or even impossible to show mercy or spare her opponent's lives. Right?
Yeah,
Like when you're
swords
fighting-
are not exactly ideal for not killing people.
I mean, we were
Right?
told this from the beginning. Swordsmen, like sword and blood combo artists are slaughter artists.
Yes.
Yep.
So death has been a fundamental part of our life, and there's probably people who would give me slack for this in the fandom, but Yaren has never been an innovator.
No, Yaren's whole bit is that she needs like
A teacher for guidance.
right, like Yaren is the one who needs direct mentorship.
Whereas everyone recognizes that Lyndon's a little freak who can come up with his own magical combat system on the fly. Whereas Yaren's whole life has been direct mentorship. Right? She got the focused attention of a sage from childhood. Then she got the focused attention of the Reaper. And then when the Reaper left, she got the focused attention of several sages and monarchs again. Right?
Yep.
So she has, again, and that's the thing, is even her unlocking of the death icon was based on learning, like copying Ethan. Her entire life has, even though her thing is that she was trying to not define herself as the sword sage, at the same time, that's more because that doesn't necessarily mean she's like her own, like she innovates on her own. She still learns from other people. She has basically she has very high learning comprehension, but not great critical thinking.
Well,
To
I
put
think
it
the
in
other thing is with Yaren is like her Overlord advancement. I am not the sword sage is mostly because she was limiting herself.
She was trying too hard to follow in his footsteps.
And like the whole thing with the Overlord revelation is that it is meant to be like not what you want, not what you think you are, but what the world thinks you are. And the world has realized she is not the sword sage.
Mm-hmm.
She is something different. And I think she's the last like her and Minchway are the last people to realize that. But I think that's the beauty of the fact that Garen came to that revelation alongside Minchway.
I think Min Shui came to the revelation a while ago. She was just very strongly in denial and trying to force it to not be true.
Well, I think part of that is because she's also in grief.
But yeah, no, obviously, yeah.
Right, like she's like in a really like roundabout way, like Min Shui is the closest thing Yaren has to a mom.
It's like stated outright that Min Shui has always thought of her as a daughter.
Right, and so like, you know, to Yaren, like Yaren Min Shui is the same on a like lower scale than Malice Mercy.
And the
Well, like the expectation that you will be the one to do like to forcefully go down the road I want you to.
with the difference being that Min Shui eventually had the awareness to compromise where Malice didn't.
Well, I think that's the beauty of her icon. Right? Like the winter icon gives her the ability to cut off her emotions, but part of the fun part about her is that she becomes she also is an antithesis to her icon. She's warm and full of emotion.
It might even be a direct result, right? Like, being so cold when tapping her icon may have just caused her to naturally overcompensate when she's not.
Right, but like to say like, you know, so her feeling her emotions much greater is not unexpected, but also I don't know. There's a level of she's really leaning into the fact that I'll describe it. Her main thing is she wants Yaren to be the thing that she thought Tim wanted her to be.
You know, it's funny because she and Charity usually have a lot of screen time together, but Charity is almost like Charity's relationship with her icon is the opposite. The heart icon is all about emotions, and Charity is one of the coldest and most like stoic and rational people in the series.
Like I think because Charity, when she unlocked the heart icon, her bit was it was because she was so collected on her like she was able to master her emotions.
Yeah, I also one of the most funny and simultaneously tragic scenes in the entire book, I think, was Lyndon bickering with Tim's Echo.
Yeah, that was funny.
Right? It was funny, but it was also like tragic because it's a glimpse at what could have been.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, you got to see Tim be like overprotective dad.
Mm-hmm.
And like you got the classic meeting the in-laws, right?
Yep.
It was like very meet the parents.
That it was.
So I think that, but yeah, at the same time, it was tragic because, like, granted, I still think Tim was kind of asking for it. Look, I will, like, forever after seeing it from his perspective, you cannot claim to be a person researching Hunger Madra and then just completely forget about the effects it has on the body.
But the thing is, like, when we see one of the earlier memories of Tim before he's in the disruption field, right? We have that discussion of him with Tiberian, right? And what is it that Tim says? Like, name me a sacred artist who can keep up with me or something or other like that, right?
And who
Um,
can name me a sacred artist who can keep up with me that I can trust.
Mm-hmm.
That was the key thing.
Right, and like the fact that Min Shui doesn't even come up in his mind is very telling. Because like, you know, Min Shui, like for all that Min Shui and Charity and all of them, you know, espouse of like being there for each other or like being there for, you know, somewhat allies, right? Like they all walk their own path. They all walk alone. The only ones who don't are the 8-Man Empire and Team Linden.
I think there's another factor to that. Is Tim basically, even excluding the point of his death, was kind of characterized by cockiness? I think part of that was a walking his own path thing, but I think in Min Shui's case, it was more the first part than the second part. I think it wasn't necessarily that he didn't trust her, but that he just thought he couldn't keep up with her. Or she couldn't keep up with him.
But that's still the fundamental flaw of Cradle, right?
Yes, it is.
Flaw. And like, that is the point.
And
like, that's why he dies. It's because he is he recognizes that there's a problem, but he is too embedded within it to solve it. Same with Tiberian. Like, Tiberian is part of the problem, but he knows it and is working hard to fix it.
And honestly, like, this is another thing to bear in mind. Tiberian also died because of his arrogance. Because he thought he could deal with Shen. He underestimated Shen. He didn't expect him to play the Weeping Dragon card. So, yeah, Tiberian absolutely also died to his own arrogance.
Arrogance being a character's downfall is a recurring theme in this series and in this book, because it also dooms Shen.
Tiberian really should have played Obelisk the Tormentor. He could have really beaten Slifer the Sky Dragon otherwise.
Yeah, but are you forgetting that if Shen had enough cards in his hand, then Slifer would have automatically destroyed Obelisk the Tormentor.
But that's the thing, right? Tiberian didn't realize that. He thought Obelisk would win.
Yes. Remind me to talk to you about something Yu-Gi-Oh! Related later. Because I learned something interesting the other day. But anyway, that's for after the stream. But yeah, I think not only is that a thing, that's kind of the main flaw of genre novels in general. And there's a book I would recommend to you, if not for the fact that none of you actually read genre novels, with the exception of Gen having read Soul Land.
To be fair, it's not like most of them are very easy to find.
Well,
they're very easy to find. It's just most of them are not good. Like, at all. I mean, like...
Yeah, that's the other issue.
I mean, to be fair, if you guys look at the chat history in the Will White Discord server, Will and I literally had a back-and-forth genre reference thing on the day of the launch, where we made genre references back and forth at each other. It was a highlight of my Waybound experience.
That's pretty rad.
Yeah, because, again, Will has read a lot of genre novels, at least all of the main, or at least enough of the main ones to have an intimate understanding of the tropes, as have I. And there's a book explaining it by, I forget his name, let me look it up. I have the book. I've got Kindle open anyway. Who is it? Jeremy Bai. Yeah, he's a really good author in general, and he's very involved in the Zhanja space, especially with his background as a Chinese American, I believe. But the core of Zhanja tropes is that it started as a almost propagandic. What's the adjective form of propaganda? Propagandistic critique of capitalism and individualism. And you can see this reflected in Zhanja characters, and that reflection you can see reflected in Cradle, where the primary flaw is that everyone is arrogant and individualistic and self-absorbed. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like it was at its core, many of the character flaws you see in Cradle were born from tropes that criticized capitalism. And I'm sure you guys are more than smart enough to see the connection.
I mean, to be fair, the main flaws, part of the main reasons that Malice, specifically Malice and Northstrider, kind of dip so hard from their primary motivations is often what we see with, people who come into wealth, even despite coming in from nothing, despite rising from nothing, it's this turn to conservatism.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, what you often see is that those who have come from nothing have a much greater fear of going back. Right? It's the whole principle of it's easy to go from frugality to luxury, but going from luxury to frugality is painful.
People don't want to regress from all the progress they've made. And that's true in many different ways.
And so you can almost say that people who come from humble backgrounds will fight even harder to keep themselves entrenched in the power structures because they've seen what it looks like to not be in a position of power.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to. I'm not doing this because I'm doing this because I need to make the point. But Clarence Thomas is the primary example of this in American politics right now. He is a man, he is a black man who has risen. He grew up in the time of Martin Luther King. He was a kid when both MLK and Malcolm X were assassinated. He's one of the first black men to get to be in an interracial marriage, legally, I might add, in the United States. And he is one of the most powerful black judge, one of the most powerful judges in this country, arguably the most powerful judge in the country. And he is a black man, right? He is part of an underclass of society. His opinions and his core values are all based around the trauma of the assassinations of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and this fear of regressing towards what was. And he is everything he does is to protect his status quo because he believes that any change in either direction is bad.
I mean, he grew up and saw people who tried to change the status quo being assassinated, so...
Right. I mean, I'm not,
It would be hard to blame him if what he did wasn't so awful.
No,
again, it's an explanation, it's not an excuse.
I'm not trying to...
I'm not saying you are. Don't worry, I'm not saying you are.
Don't worry.
But, it's very similar to what we see with Northstrider and Malice, right? They are characters who started good, who started down good roads, and then just lost themselves somewhere. Because they built so much up that they were afraid to lose it. I mean, I saw it with my own parents. I see it with my sister. My dad came to this country, in the 70s. He had delivered pizzas, and he, had an upper middle class lifestyle. My mom, she started at the post office. She now has an upper middle class lifestyle. My sister child of immigrants, not conventionally attractive, much shorter than the average person, makes $400,000 a year, is a very successful high power doctor. Like, they are people who have built so much and are afraid to lose it.
And it's hard to blame people for being afraid to lose stuff, especially when they start off from humble beginnings. But at the same time, you gotta help hold people accountable for their actions, which is kind of the point, in Cradle at least.
And, like, that's the thing about Cradle, is all about dismantling the calcification of power structure.
It's about dismantling the status quo, yeah.
And I think the biggest takeaway really is that it wouldn't have worked if they hadn't insisted on advancing at roughly the same pace.
Mm-hmm.
It would not have...
They collectively move together.
Yeah. Cooperation. Being in union with each other.
Though that brings the... Look, there's a much deeper conversation about collectivism versus individualism and the effects that has on human cognition, even, because, like, I will be fully...
I am fully...
There is a sense of tribal mentality amongst humans that kind of goes real deep.
Like, my most recent courses were cognitive and social psychology, and both of those courses had deep dives into the differences between individuals from collectivist and individualistic societies. And there are, like, tangible cognitive and social differences.
Oh, yeah.
Like, these are scientifically provable and replicable. So,
there is that cognitive sense, and society that doesn't exactly align with how you were evolved to behave based off, the old times.
Jack, you're roboting hard.
No more. I got it.
It would be funny if you hadn't roboted so hard that we couldn't even make it out.
Damn it.
But, like, even if you go, like, even greater societal outside of, like governmental style or economic style, right? Like, you have, like, this, like, Cradle, there are key flaws to, communism. There are key flaws to anarchism, both of which are things I lean towards nowadays, but...
There is no perfect society, is the gist of it.
Right.
Well, no, it's not even that. It's not that there's no perfect theory. It's that any society to function optimally requires human beings to function optimally, and human beings are not optimal creatures by nature.
I'd actually argue something similar but different. For any society to function optimally, it must take into account the inherent flaws and difficulties of being human.
No. One might argue that that's not necessarily possible. Okay, again, please.
There's a statement, I forget who makes it, but in order to build a socialist society, you first must build the ideal socialist man.
Yes, and I think that's
the gist of what Jack is saying, I think.
Yes, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I do think there is an additional layer to that issue in that I don't know that humans have evolved enough that it's possible to build the ideal socialist man. Because I don't think that we have the hardware for it yet. And therein lies the problem. I think people forget that the human flaws are not necessarily exclusively a software issue. There is, like, a very provable and traceable hardware issue in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of how our brains function is hardwired. and changing that mentality is not necessarily something that can be achieved without like literal evolution.
Yes. I mean, part of it is just helping people to understand each other, which is also an uphill battle in of itself.
Well, again, it's because our brains just did not develop in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Our brains have physically developed in the direction that is optimal to tribalism. We have not physically developed in an optimal direction for empathy.
No, that's not true, Fuzzy, because...
No. You know what I mean. There's a difference between tribalistic empathy and generalized empathy.
I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily true that we haven't developed generalized empathy, because otherwise a lot of people's general emotional responses to a lot of media, for instance, a lot of news and a lot of just general behaviors shows that it is not possible, very common for people to develop empathy for complete strangers.
Yes, but at the same time, it is very difficult for people's empathy for strangers to override their tribalistic instincts.
That's a whole different matter altogether, though.
Yeah, so it's essentially we have like conflicting parts.
But yes, we're straying a bit off track here.
I mean,
don't think we've so much as strayed as we've sprinted off track.
Oh no, we've gone full Zorro. We have no sense of where we were or are.
We ended up in the background of Jujutsu Kaisen when we're supposed to be in Wano.
Yep. But yeah,
why is Zorro in the Spider Society?
I'm surprised no one's made a meme of that yet. Someone should. But yes. Anyways, back to Cradle. There was another thing I wanted to talk about, but it is evading me at the moment. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, we haven't really talked much about like the actual fighting in Waybound, because the action sequences in Waybound are pretty fucking rad.
Okay, so I have a comment on the action sequences in Waybound.
Oh. Yes.
They're very, very cool, but I do worry that Dragon Ball does not translate to text as well for everyone. To me, it's fine, because I've always been someone who essentially animates the text in their head anyway. That's how I consume media. But I do worry that there's probably people who like just can't. If you don't have a background in shonen, you might just not be able to parse the fight scenes.
I mean, there's a whole thing about people not being able to visualize, like the cube test, the ability to, how many cubes can you visualize in your head before you lose it?
I mean,
the answer for me is 1.
Imagine
9.
a cube and it's like cube and then spin it, and then add cubes.
Yeah, 9. But yeah,
I can get up to 5 if I concentrate really hard.
but
like,
what I'm saying is the fight scenes are excellent.
Incredible. It's just that
I do feel like I also like that almost all of the fights are thematically resonant or resonant with the character arcs.
Yes,
because we have like Lyndon facing first Shen on his own, and then doing a full Monarch bonanza, and then you have the fights that respectively Mercy, Zeal, Mercy, and Yaren have that are really personal for them, and as well as like the big final conflict against the Dread Gods, and against Shen as well.
I mean, there's something very poetic to Northstrider losing to the consume technique because he built a tool instead of a partner.
Yep.
Because Northstrider explicitly said his Oracle Codex is a weapon, not a person.
Yep.
And that's why it's weaker than Dross. So
Dross is, in fact, the superior version of the Oracle Codex.
yeah, and that's something that Northstrider, he saw it, he studied Dross, he realized that was the thing, but because he's still a scared
He was
child
super up in his own
insecure.
bullshit, yeah.
No, he has trust issues, right? So he will not allow himself to trust another soul sharing his body in the same way that Lyndon did.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because Lyndon had to, like, they built up a relationship, and it was a situation of mutual consent, where they both kind of were willing to accept each other into their lives, whereas Northstrider is too caught up in his trust issues to be willing to, like, be that intimate with anyone.
Speaking of Dross, I love the Dross copies that everyone gets.
The Drosslings, I call them.
Yes. It's just so great. Yeah, also, I am both surprised and unsurprised with the directions that everyone went with their with the stage they took right before Monarch. Because we already knew where Lyndon and Yaren were beforehand, but it was kind of neat seeing Zeal go the Sage route and Mercy go the Herald route first.
It made sense, though. Like,
It did make sense, yes.
We already knew that Zeal was hinting at the shield icon, and with what's her face, Malice at as the Shadow Sage, like, it makes sense for Mercy to not do that.
Yeah, it made sense for Mercy to go in a different direction from Malice.
I mean, well, there's actually another very important thing. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but Larian is very interesting to me because she breaks a pattern that is very heavily established throughout the entirety of Cradle.
Oh?
Sages tend to be innovators who come from humbler backgrounds, whereas heralds tend to be from stronger backgrounds who rely on, like, learning from a legacy.
Yeah, Larian, I think she said she was a privileged prodigy, right?
She was literally privileged enough that her parents could get her up to gold by the time she was 5. And she was the young mistress of an influential family. And I think Charity is kind of also that, but I think she's more of an edge case because the books kind of throw that common pattern into nowhere. But, like, think about it. Malice came from a destroyed clan, which he had to build up. Northstrider was a slave. Lyndon, unsold. Zeal, he kind of brought up his own sect. He was like, he brought it up on his own.
Didn't he say that he and his dad were just from a poor village in the middle of nowhere?
Yes, yeah. But apparently his dad was just like a farmer or something. Yeah, so thus far, with the sole exceptions of Charity and Larian, that has been the pattern. Like, look at the Heralds. Yaren, personal successor of at least 2 sages, and the Reaper.
Fury, eldest living son of a monarch.
Yeah, Mercy. Nothing more needs to be said about her.
The
right?
chosen successor of said same monarch.
Right? Like,
Yeah, what's her face? Yushi, the Thunder Fairy, pride, like, right hand of the richest man in the world.
right? So, dragons tend to be heralds first, because dragons hoarding.
It's funny
So-
it's funny that Orthos becomes a sage, but he's also an impoverished black dragon.
I was gonna say y'all hadn't mentioned Orthos or Little Blue this entire time.
I was gonna get around to them, but we
Getting
kind of got sidetracked by the theming.
But
Little
there's
Blue
an
becoming a herald is also a bit of a pattern breaker because she's also
no.
humble beginnings.
No. Little Blue's literally her personality formed from being fed a scale personally formed by Osriel the Reaper.
Yeah, no, I can see that now.
She literally grew up suckling on Ethan's majestic teat.
I know you had to put it that way, and I honestly don't blame you.
I hate all of you so much.
Is he wrong, though? Is he wrong?
No, that's why he hates us, because we're right. Yeah, Orthos is an impoverished black dragon. He's not even a black dragon, he's a descendant of a black dragon. And Little Blue is literally, she probably has received more resources and better treatment than the young mistresses of many rich families. Mm-hmm. Right? She was the baby of the family, so they funneled all of their love and care to her. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it makes perfect sense, actually. Also, it's very, very sweet that Orthos suggested his mother's name for Blue. It's like an incredibly wholesome moment that I feel like not enough people talk about.
So, like, here's the other thing that's funny is that Little Blue's arc is all about her gaining into her doing things, like her fighting her own fights and not being protected.
Mm-hmm. I do find her evolution very funny too. It's just like she becomes a full human and she still does not speak. And you know what? Good for her.
Literally the only word she said in the entire series is yay. Yay! There's something magical about that.
Yes, Little Blue is a delight.
Look, I'm gonna make enemies by saying this, but she's better Syl from Stormlight. I do not regret saying that.
You're gonna get backlash from that.
Of course I will. But, I have long accepted the possibility of backlash from the Sander fans.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's a very interesting takeaway, is that heralds tend to come from entrenched powers, and sages tend to come from humble backgrounds, and sages are innovators, heralds are more forcing their way through things.
Yeah, they're meatheads.
Yeah, and again, one of the other exceptions to this is the Beast King.
Yeah, he's just like a hobo king.
But no.
The thing is, that's the beauty of the Beast King, though, because he has support from his from the.
Well, yeah.
The
well, do you guys know his backstory?
Yeah, he was a crippled kid.
Yes, but no. He was from a good background, but he got crippled during his ascension to Iron, so he changed his path. But then he got help. But the changing of the path allowed him to become a Pokemon trainer, and that gave him the support of his beast. So, yes, that does make sense.
But yeah, do you think because the people who become Herald are part of these, big power structures, and therefore find it hard to sort of solidify their identity the way that sages need to?
Yes, because that makes perfect sense, because the core of being a sage is being who you are regardless of outside influences, and so I can understand. And with heralds, it's explicitly stated, not only can you brute force it, you can also try as many times as you need to.
I mean,
you can try to be sage as many times as you need to as well. It's just manifesting an icon is not as straightforward.
Well, no, it's like,
just look at the two examples that we have in Team Linden, basically. Yeren, her identity changes so much throughout the series, from wanting to be the next Sword Sage to basically being Junior Reaper. Mercy changes from wanting to be the heir of the family and help the family to realizing that the best thing she can do is to maybe not destroy the family, but, destroy this image of the family that has been propagated by malice.
Matricide, yes.
Their
raises a good
identities
point.
change throughout the series, so that until they solidify it in Waybound, they can't reach Sage, and therefore they are far more likely to reach Herald.
Whereas Lyndon from the beginning has just been a thirsty black hole.
Mm-hmm.
He has been a void in which knowledge and experience have just vanished into.
Zeal is an interesting one because he basically has to go back to what he was rather than solidify his identity.
It's more Zeal
he was a protector, and then he lost everything he tried to protect, and so he lost that part of his identity until he was given that chance to regain it by joining Team Linden.
I think it's also accepting that he could still be a protector, even after failing once.
Yeah, one failure.
I do remember also that they mentioned at some point or another that Zeal's original goal was to go for Herald first.
Yeah, because again, most people do, right? Because Herald, again, Shen says it as well. You can just shove elixirs into someone until they hit Herald. Right? You can brute force Herald in a way that you can't brute force Sage.
I do find it funny though that Mercy didn't even need to brute force Herald.
Well,
She
that's
just
what I was just about. That's just what I was about to bring up. It's also certainly those two, Yaren and Mercy's ascension to Herald, is shows what Team Linden is about: cooperation. Yaren gets to Herald easily because she worked with Ruby.
She gets to Herald prematurely too, which is wild.
Mercy reaches Herald because she and her remnant are just so in sync. Obviously, Zeal has a harder time because the whole thing, but
it's more that your remnant is just a reflection of who you are, and who he is just a general
good person,
adorable sweetheart. Yes.
Yeah, she's a cinnamon roll.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, that actually brings up a point. Fuzzy, you've been sort of down on Mercy throughout the series. How are you feeling about her now that the series is finished?
I love her icon so fucking much.
Oh no, it's great, and I kind of wish she had
wonderful.
I wish Yaren had gotten the Aethan icon. That would have been fucking hilarious.
That was, oh my god, that gag scene, that blooper though.
I'm thinking, technically speaking, Osriel is deaf, so
she did get the Aethan icon.
She did, but I just thought it would have been funnier if the death icon was a portrait of Osriel.
Yeah, and just imagine Shen's reaction to it. Just imagine his reaction to it. He would absolutely shit himself. Anyway, Fuzzy, yeah.
Yeah, so, I have to give Will props. He definitely did turn me around on Mercy. Because yes, I did not like Mercy as a character until she had her realization that her family is the problem. Or that, rather, the entrenched structure of the family is the problem. Because, remember, up until, book 10, she was still kind of hoping... Well, honestly, not even book 10. Even in Dread God, right? She was still kind of hoping to change it from the inside.
But I feel like not to say I told you so, but I think I had said, this is Mercy's whole arc.
Yes, and I also remember saying, just because I know where the arc is going doesn't mean I have to like her in the moment. Right? I understood that was where the arc was going, but I just didn't... And also, there's another thing to remember. Regardless of the talent and quality and work ethic of a writer, it's always possible to, flop the landing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where until I saw the arc come to fruition, I could not fully believe it. And I'm sure you have experience with it. Like, we talked about this with the Sanderson stuff with you again, remember?
Oh yeah, no, 100%. But like,
Until,
I think
until
I'm always more hopeful than not with an author until I'm
Yes, and I think I'm just more cynical when it comes to that. So that's really the core issue.
Right, but I came into this being partially
Hello?
because I came into into Mercy's arc a lot less like worried about it and more eager to see what Will does with it, because I've seen Mercy's story before. I was curious to see where he landed on it, because a lot of the times when you get a Mercy story, you often get it as the family was wrong, blah blah blah. Like, no shade, but like, it's oftentimes, especially when it's a white writer, it's very much the best decision is to cut off ties when
Yes.
like, and like, as part of Asian culture is like, that's not as simple as you think.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think Will threaded the line, and that was my worry, and I was interested to see where he landed on that. But like, in and so like, that was kind of where I was worried he was gonna go, was like, was he gonna lean into, is this a white person's view of how family structure should go?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
is this a white person's
Yes.
critique of Asian family structures?
And honestly, like, there is a dissonance too, like, and a kind of nuance that kind of does not really track into a lot of Western views of these kinds of family structures, because the Western view tends to be either cut everyone off, just they're all toxic or whatnot, or they're your family. You have to live with the fact that
I will also say, from my understanding, even in Western society, there are regional differences. For example, if I understand correctly, the American South does still have those big clans,
Yep.
and I'm not just talking about the one with a K.
Yeah, no.
I mean,
Oh, you mean the Kappa clan? That fraternity, yeah.
I mean, the Hartfields and the McCoys, like, that's famous, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that clan rivalry. That's a fun one.
But like,
those family structures. What I'm trying to say is that there are analogous family structures that do exist in Western culture.
right, but like, when we talk about the greater American subculture regarding family ties, it isn't that. Like, that isn't the way things are talked about. It is all about, like, you are an individual, you thusly, not easily, but you can cut ties, whereas like, that's just not part of the equation in other ways.
Mm-hmm. And it is a societal difference, honestly. So it's not like an easy one to parse.
Right, I mean, like, I'm trying to think, like,
Sorry, I had to leave for a second. Where were we?
I mean,
We're still talking about like family approaches.
and like, you see this in the way, like Western cartoon, like younger Western cartoons talk about it, right? Avatar: The Last Airbender, Steven Universe, Owl House are like the big three that I can think of right now that have some arc related to this, right? Owl House, like Rebecca Sugar, not Rebecca, Dana Terrace, like, she is of Latin descent, but her whole thing is like, the families are the ones that you make, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you should cut ties with those who are toxic. But I do think, like, she does really lean into the difficulties in cutting off toxic families, where a show like you know, Steven Universe is a little bit less.
Yeah, Steven Universe definitely does not have as satisfying a conclusion as
Well,
it could.
part of the
for a lot
reason
of people.
part of the reason for that is simply because
It's
Steven
a
Universe.
show. It's a show aimed at younger kids, right?
Well,
And
and,
then-
there's also just the fact that Rebecca Sugar wrote it as kind of like her own catharsis of, what if I could convince my awful relatives to treat me like a person? In that kind of almost a power fantasy type thing.
Yes, and that's where the dissonance comes from, because you have to admit there's a certain dissonance to just everyone's happy and we just forget all the war crimes and genocide.
Yes, but that's a topic for another thing.
The
But yeah,
Naruto way of
Avatar-
doing it.
What was that?
The Naruto way of doing it.
Ah, yes. Talk no jutsu. But
Exactly.
yes, what was I gonna say? Shoot. But with Avatar, at least, there's also the, it's not like a full cutting off of the family, because Zuko does try to reach out to Azula and help her, and
I think-
he
and-
also has Iroh, who is just like, basically more his father than his actual biological father.
And it's also like important to remember that he does make a distinction in Azula's case, because it is established that a lot of her issues are just mental illness, and the fact that she was allowed to enabled, that's the word. The fact
Yep.
that her unhealthy situation was enabled by her father. And also, and by a neglectful mother, really. Though her mother was more a case of allowing the trauma to prevent her from actually, not lashing out at those unaffected.
Uh-huh.
But yes, Mill, we seem to have woken you up to some extent.
I mean,
Do you have any thoughts thus far?
Yes and no. I mean, not really. You all think about this stuff in a lot more in depth than I do, or at least like consciously. And you're
I think that's partially because I don't know, for at least in my case, like, I've spent a lot of time teaching myself to do that, and like that's important to me to learn how stories are written.
In my case, it's because I'm autistic.
I don't know. I just like doing off the cuff analysis, and sometimes I think about things a lot, and sometimes I don't think about them at all. And
Also, you are a psychology student. You
yes,
have a bachelor's in psychology. Let's not forget about that.
yes, yes, I do.
That definitely does have an effect, even if you don't necessarily realize it consciously.
Yes.
So yeah,
But
it's,
yeah, I mean, everything you're saying makes sense. It absolutely does. I mean, obviously, we haven't really focused on Lyndon because there's not a huge amount to
I mean,
really say in
it's
terms
like
of
Lyndon-
I'm gonna be
development.
honest, Lyndon's arc
is done.
already
He had
ends.
his arc. Yeah.
Like, the minute Lyndon's arc ended was when he said, "I am the end."
Mm-hmm.
No, I would say, I would more say his arc ended when at his Archlord revelation.
That was his arc.
Because I think,
Oh no.
I will say I do like the callbacks of Lyndon saying "I am the end" right before the epilogue, and also Lyndon versus Lee Markuth, because what a way to bookend.
That was a good bookend. That was a really good bookend.
Lee Markuth was the single best bookend I have seen in recent writing. Mostly because
It makes sense. It works.
it makes so much sense. And also, I can just imagine the oh crap moment when Lyndon said he was raised up by Suriel and Osriel.
Yep.
This is my only
Like-
complaint about the ending of the book. When Lyndon says the end, Travis also says the end of Cradle, and I wish it
Yeah.
just meant I am the end, and then just
The
go
end-
into the epilogue. It would have been funny.
Yeah, no, that would have been better. I honestly do think that would have been better. I think he just had to do it for like structural reasons.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that's another reason. That's the thing I was kind of talking about. Is first of all, Lyndon's arc is over. Orthos' arc is also kind of over. It's why we haven't talked as much about him, right?
Little-
Like,
Little Blue,
Her
what arc she
finishes-
had is already
Well,
Pretty
her
over.
arc ended like like when she hit a herald. That is like her arc ends with her fighting Malice. The fact that she's on the field fighting Malice is her arc.
Yes.
That is her climax.
And honestly, she does fucking amazing.
but yeah, it's one of those things where the reason we're talking about some characters more than others is just because in this book they were more interesting to think about.
Like, I think the main four members of Ethan's mentee group are the ones who get the bulk of the focus in this book, which is kind of the point, because this is their story of how they ascended.
Yeah,
But there is a lot of focus on the monarchs as well, because they also have to ascend.
they either
or
ascend or
die.
die, right?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, and I think like, look, Lyndon Mill was upset with me when I said this, but I do think that I don't find the Lyndon as seen in the epilogue interesting, because that's the thing. The thing that makes a character interesting is their arc and their conflict, and Lyndon's arc and conflict have kind of ended a while ago. Which is why I'm not particularly as interested in him. It's why I talked so much about, like, speculated so much about, like, Northstrider and Shamiara, because their arcs haven't resolved.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, when like we had the Lyndon surreal like hawk, like
That was nice. That was
was-
nice.
I did choke up.
That was a real good talk.
Again, I'm gonna make enemies here, but I was not as much of a fan of that part.
How dare you? I'm just kidding.
So it's basically because, to me, it did feel a touch unearned. To me, the talk that he had at the end of Bloodline was much more poignant. Personally. Whereas the talk at the end of Waybound almost felt somewhat unnecessary to me. Because to me, again, the arc between Lyndon and Suriel was wrapped up in a nice little bow by the time they had their talk at the end of Bloodline.
Yes, like I agree and I disagree. Like, I think to Lyndon, like in many ways, Lyndon being able to reach, like, when Suriel says, "You just stepped out of the cradle," like you finally stepped out of the cradle, like that is Lyndon's ability, like that gives Lyndon's ability to like talk to her, right? Like we only see Lyndon speak to Ethan on an equal level when he becomes the sage of the Void Sage.
Mm-hmm.
He knows he's not on the same playing field as Ethan, but he also recognizes that he's on a tier, right? Where, like, and the same thing is true when he finally talks to Suriel at the end. There's like, it's the same dynamic. He gets to have a moment where he is finally
Recognized
for being who he is.
I
And
will
like-
say, all other things aside, I do feel like most of the characters got fitting conclusions to both their arcs and the story overall. Oh, not all of them got perfect send-offs per se, but I feel like most of them had fitting endings to their arcs.
Yeah, and also I would also argue that like, you know, Lyndon's arc especially only really ends when he steps out of Cradle.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm still a little... Okay, I know I said I wasn't salty, but conceptually I have a little bit of conceptual salt remaining.
Okay, but before you get into the salt, I would like to, speaking of characters' final fates and how fitting they were, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but Raygon Shen's final fate is just so fucking satisfying. I think we talked about it briefly last time, but I think that was when we got cut off by Mill's internet dying.
Yes, I believe it might have been.
But yeah, like, it's just so fitting and karmic for him to go out being stabbed in the back and just pathetically trying his damnedest to claw his way back to
someone he... Not just stabbed in the back by someone he underestimated.
Yeah.
Yes.
And didn't take seriously.
Yeah.
Which is Ethan, which is his role with Ethan, with Lyndon, with Yaren. Everyone he underestimates and gets outplayed.
Mm-hmm.
He thinks he can outplay the Dread Gods. He realizes, oh shit, I should make deals with the devil.
Again, it's that Clayman thing again.
Yep.
Clayman thought he'd leashed, you know, one of the most dangerous demon lords. It turned out he was being fucking played, and he only realized it at the end.
When it was way too late to back out.
Way too late for him to do anything about it but take a fucking beating.
Yep.
Look, once you get on the tiger, it's easy to get on the tiger. It's really hard to get the tiger off.
Easy to get on a tiger?
You know, I believe in the folklore of my family, my ancestor did cross a river on the back of a tiger.
Oh, that's pretty rad, actually.
It could be a false story, but things were wild back in the day. Who knows? It's entirely possible it's a true story.
But yeah, I think that realization for Shen came when he did actually, you know, talk to the intelligent Dread Gods and realize, yeah, I've been fucking with forces I have no way to control, and this is it for me. I'm pretty much fucked from this point, aren't I?
Shen
Speaking of which,
Shen wanted to nuke a hurricane.
Yeah. Speaking of the Dread Gods, though, I did find the final like transformations of the Phoenix and the Wandering Ten to be interesting.
Look, if Cradle had a wider fan base, there would already be...
Oh, there'd already be loot fan art of the Bleeding Phoenix's human form. 100%.
Look, I'm shocked there's not already mommy Larian art.
No, she's never exuded mother energy. Let's be real.
No, that's Emrys. That's always been Emrys.
No, but also, I'm not sure if
yes, I know where what you're referring to.
I'm not sure if you'll know this, but there is a not safe for work Cradle subreddit.
I don't think it exists anymore.
No, I'm
Hard
fairly
to say.
sure it does. I don't know.
I looked for iteration 34. It no longer exists, or at
Really?
least it's not searchable.
Oh. Maybe not.
It might be
searchable.
because Reddit is currently in.
You know, imploding.
That's like probably it. Yeah.
Reddit's been purging a lot of their not safe for work subs.
Which is so annoying. I hate that the internet in general is trying to cleanse itself of that kind of shit.
It's because of investors.
And
Fuck
it's also
investors.
the most.
Fuck them.
It's also like very provably doesn't work.
Yeah, no. never
Tumblr tried
lasts.
it. They had to roll it back.
The Tumblr ban is just like one of the biggest demonstrations of why that's a bad idea, because they lost a massive chunk of their user base, and after the porn ban, like, profits plummeted to the point that the company that had Tumblr took, I think it was like a 97% loss.
Yeah, they were hemorrhaging money at one point, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, no. It was just like, that's how badly they fucked up by doing that.
But yeah, my favorite thing about that Not Safe for Work subreddit is that Will actually posted on it.
Oh, that's neat. I mean,
Look,
Red Gun was
Will is
the
a cool-
best-selling erotic fantasy novel.
We're not gonna get into that. But no, I think... Oh, by the way, did you all read the summary comic?
Yes.
No, what's summary comic?
So,
There was
in the run-up, Will revealed that he commissioned an artist and basically created like a Webtoons comic summary of the series. Like, it wasn't anything in-depth, it was basically just big moments.
Oh.
Yeah, it was basically a slideshow of, like, greatest hits from books 1 through 11. And,
Like, you gotta find that. Could one of you guys post that, actually?
Yeah, I'll send you the link afterwards. I mean, actually, Fuzzy, I think you have it, so you can send it.
yeah, the problem is I'm on mobile, so... Let me find it.
I know-
Go away.
I-
I know.
I definitely sent it to you, so you
Yes,
should have
you
it.
did. I'm going back in our, like... We send a lot of links to each other.
That's fair.
Oh, you did not DM it to me.
Did I not?
No.
Alright.
Yeah.
Give me a second.
Oh, no. I found it, because, like, it was in the same message as an archive of our own link, so I thought that was it. Let me find Jack. Okay. Can I say, if we had, there would have been a moment where I could have done a "you had me in the first half," not gonna lie. But as you don't have the context, I can't make that joke.
You can make it to me.
Yes, I did not like Emrys's design.
Ah.
And the reason I didn't like her design is because she looked too crystalline and not enough leafy. The leaves looked like crystals. That is my only objection, but I'm sure there were other people who had more stupid objections to her designs. And I'm sure, Mill, you understand why.
Yeah.
Because they're racist. Anyway, God, it's hard to... Please, someone make a segue. I'm dying over here.
They see me roll on my Segway. Sorry.
I think we've hit most of what I
Yeah.
wanted to
Well,
talk
yeah.
I mean,
just
I
wanted
think,
to
I
get
think
your
final
overall,
thoughts.
I think we can all agree it was a good,
It
ending
was
to the Cradle
honestly
series.
It was honestly... It stuck the landing in a way that I feel more shonen series need to learn from. Because, let's be honest, this entire extended international genre of battle shonen, because that's what it is at this point, the single biggest issue is the ending.
Yes, and I think it actually plays into my theory for how the shonens that end well do it. It has a set end goal. It
Yes.
knows exactly where it's going to end from minute one of the first book. It knows that the end goal is Lyndon ascending out of Cradle.
Yep.
Only, to me, there are two possible valid endings. The one of them is, yes, what you said, it knows from chapter 1 what the final chapter or the epilogue is going to look like. The other one is resolve people's character arcs and then have them ride off into the sunset with the adventure continues tag.
Which, to be fair, Cradle sort of did both.
It did both, and again, that's it.
But yeah,
that's to its credit.
I'm again. This is just my theory based on thinking about the shonens that I know that have ended well. Chief among them, Ass Class. That knew exactly where it was gonna end. It had a set end date.
Also
Physically
had
ending.
the adventure continues.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's One Piece, which does have a set end goal, but we have no idea how long it's going to take to get there.
I mean, Oda's known what the ending's going to be from chapter 1. He said as much himself.
But then
Yeah.
you look at the ones with the unsatisfying endings. They're the ones that have gone longer than they should, and that's because there's, not been this set endpoint, so that they can be sort of, forced, if you will, by the editors.
They either have this set endpoint, or they just completely dodge the ability, the setup for that set endpoint. Naruto is a perfect example of the latter, because could have ended with a pain arc as the perk setup to be and then I became Hokage and the end and all that shit, and then no, they spent an entire fucking third of the manga in a dragged out war arc.
And then there's Detective Conan.
Detective Conan will never end. That will last until the heat death of the universe.
I'm pretty sure Detective Conan is going to outlive its author.
Oh,
That's not a joke.
The author wrote the last chapter. It's in a safety deposit box in a secret bank in Japan.
God damn.
I just want to imagine 150 years later in the ruins of Japan, somebody finds that and goes, "Holy shit! It actually exists."
No, what I want is a heist movie that revolves around stealing it.
You don't think that's the actual end game? No, but my point.
The author of Detective Conan finds out the biggest fans of Detective Conan throughout the world, and just sends them a letter, just telling them to fucking steal it if they can try.
Yep.
But I think that's the best. Even if it's not true, it is still an incredibly good apocryphal story about.
But yeah, I will say one thing, and this is an opportunity that was robbed from me by Jack. So, but it's fair because I interrupt him all the time, so it's fair play. But I think the moral of the story is Shen learned it's easy to get on the tiger, but it's hard to get the tiger off.
And on that note, good night, everybody.
Shen fucked around too much, and he found out.
Yes, something furries, something Kaiser. You think Kaiser would like Cradle? He probably would, wouldn't he?
He probably would.
I'm not sure how much of a book reader is, to be fair.
You can someone can add him on Twitter. Who knows? You might see it.
The last couple of times I've tried to add him on Twitter, I've got no reply. I don't think I'm gonna work. So, what I'll do is I'll try and wait until a TF either.
Try adding him and Will Wight in the same mention.
I'll wait until he's either solo streams, which could be a while, or he's just on a TFS stream, and then I'll subscribe or drop some bits.
But yes, thank you everyone for joining us as we talk about the problems with entrenched power structures and socioeconomic inequality.
I mean, eventually we're gonna do this all again when we get to Waybound and our Cradle examination.
Speaking of which, we need to set up the tournament arcs sometime soon.
Yeah, we do. We also need to do some Dresden File stuff while we can.
But yeah, thank you all for joining me.
Yes, thank you everybody for watching. Hopefully you have enjoyed. In terms of future stuff, Saturday I think we're gonna play A Year of Springs, which is a queer VN, because yeah, Pride Month. Sunday, don't know. Tuesday and Thursday, don't know. We're sort of riding on the seat of our pants, considering Jack is abandoning us for Hawaii.
I'm not abandoning you. You've known about this for months.
And yet
that doesn't make it not abandonment, Jack.
Yeah, just because you've planned it out in excruciating detail doesn't mean it doesn't hurt.
Look, it's fine. Jack's just going to go buy some milk in Hawaii. He'll be back in no time, right?
He'll be back.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Just going to buy some milk and cigarettes in Hawaii.
Again, though, Jack, the issue is more that you've put yourself down for so much in terms of the podcast topics. We don't have much without you.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. Everyone
It's
needs
fine.
a vacation at some point. We'll discuss this after. Let's close out the. Yes. So on Saturday we will be role playing as a disaster lesbian. Hopefully, that's my dream.
Well, there's 3 characters. I think one is trans, one might be a lesbian, and one is ace. I think is the is how it goes. But
we
I
all
can't-
know
not sure.
that my deepest desire is to be a disaster lesbian. So let's see if we can facilitate that with this VN.
We'll do our best.
Uh,
But yes, thank you again for watching. Please do give us a follow here on Twitch and on Twitter at Storytime_net. And otherwise, we hope to see you on Saturday for a Year of Springs. Good night.
Later.
Bye bye.